A single hammer strike can reveal a lost world beneath your feet. In 1963, a man in Turkey knocked down a wall in his home and found a passage into darkness, a doorway to the ancient underground city of Derinkuyu. By the end of this journey, you will understand how this stone labyrinth sheltered 20,000 people and what its silent halls say about our own capacity for survival. We will explore why a civilization would choose to live in perpetual night and how they engineered air, water, and security deep within the earth. What does it take for an entire community to vanish from history only to be rediscovered centuries later? What forgotten ingenuity lies buried just below the surface of our everyday lives? This is a story of hidden chapters and human resilience carved directly into the rock. What would you build to protect everything you hold dear? The wall crumbled not into dust, but into a void. On the other side of the ordinary stone and plaster was not another room, but a chilling draft of stale, ancient air. The homeowner in Nevşehir stood at the edge of a darkness so complete it felt solid. He had not found a hidden storage closet or a forgotten cellar. He had opened a doorway to another world, a world that existed directly beneath the floorboards of his own life. That first tentative peek with a lantern would have revealed a rough-hewn tunnel sloping down into the earth, its walls marked by the unmistakable, deliberate strokes of tools, not the random work of nature. The initial thought might have been of a simple cave, perhaps a place to store wine or grain, but as he ventured further, the truth became inescapable. The tunnel branched, stairs appeared, carved right from the living rock, descending into deeper blackness. Rooms opened to the left and right, not as natural caverns, but as square, purposeful chambers. This was not a hole in the ground, it was architecture. The sheer scale of it would have dawned on him slowly, a creeping realization that the emptiness echoing back his footsteps was vast, organized, and profoundly old. Word of the find spread, drawing in archaeologists and officials. Their systematic exploration transformed a local curiosity into a global revelation. They mapped not just a few rooms, but level after level, a vertical city plunging nearly 300 feet into the volcanic rock. Each new chamber, each connecting corridor, was a piece of a puzzle so grand it redefined the landscape. That single hammer strike in 1963 did more than remodel a home. It tore a page from a history book everyone thought was complete. It was a moment where the past reached up and grabbed the present, reminding us that the ground we walk on is not just dirt and stone, but a living archive. What we build on the surface is often just the latest chapter, written over silent, waiting cities of memory. The discovery of Derinkuyu was a gift of pure chance, a crack in time that asked a thrilling and unsettling question. If this was hidden here, what else is waiting just behind the next wall for its moment to be found? The city beneath the city gave no name to its architects. When the dust settled from that first discovery, the most pressing question echoed in every empty chamber. Who carved this and when? Derinkuyu presents us with a history written in stone, but without a signature. There are no grand inscriptions declaring a founding king, no time capsules left behind with a neat date. This absence of a written record turns the search for origins into a fascinating detective story, where scholars must become interpreters of rock and shadow. The architectural style itself is the first major clue. The techniques used, the types of doors and ventilation shafts, offer a kind of fingerprint. Some researchers looking at these fingerprints trace them back to the Phrygians, a powerful Iron Age kingdom that flourished in this region around the 8th to 7th centuries before the Common Era. They were master stoneworkers known for carving monumental facades into cliffs. Could the underground city be an extension of that skill, turned inward for protection. Others propose an even older origin, looking to the Hittites, an empire that dominated Anatolia centuries earlier. Their need for secure storage and refuge is well documented, making them plausible candidates. Then there is the theory that ties Derinkuyu most closely to the early Christian communities of the region, who faced periods of hardship and sought sanctuary from conflict. They certainly used the city extensively, expanding it, but were they the original builders, or did they inherit and adapt a much older shelter? Each theory has its proponents, and each is compelling in its own way. This debate is more than academic. It speaks to the immense effort required. We are not talking about a few families digging a basement. This was a public works project of staggering ambition, requiring coordination, advanced engineering knowledge, and a vast amount of labor. Such an undertaking implies a highly organized society with a powerful, unifying motivation. They were not just building a hiding place, they were building a lifeboat for an entire population, investing generations of work into a plan they hoped they would never have to fully use. The uncertainty of its birth forces us to look past kings and dates and into the human psyche. What shared fear or what shared hope could motivate a community to literally move their world underground, to choose a life of dim, engineered light over the sun? The answer lies not in a scroll, but in the sheer, silent testament of the rock itself, a monument to a collective decision that survival, in whatever form, was the ultimate priority. To understand that decision, we must descend deeper into the very machinery of this subterranean world. The most obvious answer is also the most chilling. Derinkuyu was a fortress, in a land crisscrossed by the marching routes of empires, from the Persians to the Arab armies to later the Mongols. Surface villages were terrifyingly exposed. When scouts spotted dust clouds on the horizon, the entire population could funnel underground, sealing themselves behind massive, wheel-shaped stone doors that rolled across key passageways. These doors, some weighing over 1,000 pounds, were the final lock on a vault of stone. It was the ultimate defensive strategy, to simply disappear from the world above. But to label Derinkuyu only as a bunker is to misunderstand its genius. The evidence carved into its walls tells a more nuanced story. This was not a dark hole for cowering in fear. It was a lifeboat designed for extended voyages. Think of the difference between a storm cellar and a fully stocked homestead. The presence of spaces like stables for livestock, churches for worship, communal kitchens, wineries, and even schools points to a community that did more than just hide, they lived. They maintained their culture, their social structure, and their daily rhythms in the belly of the earth. This suggests the threats they faced were not always brief raids, but prolonged periods of instability. Perhaps it was not just armies, but the harsh realities of a shifting climate, or relentless political unrest that made the surface world unlivable for months or even years at a time. The psychological purpose becomes as important as the physical one. In a world of unpredictable danger, Derinkuyu offered more than safety from swords, it offered certainty. It was a known plan, a rehearsed ritual of survival that every member of the community understood. That shared knowledge, that collective retreat into a prepared sanctuary, would have forged an incredible bond and provided a profound sense of agency amidst chaos. They were not merely victims of circumstance, they were architects of their own continuity. The city's evolving design, with layers added across centuries, shows it was not built for a single crisis, but as a permanent feature of their civilization, a deep-rooted insurance policy against an uncertain world. To understand its true purpose, then, we must see it as both shield and sanctuary, a reflection of a society that planned not just to survive the next attack, but to preserve their very way of life through whatever darkness the world above might bring. This intricate purpose demanded an equally intricate design, one that solved the most fundamental problem of all: how to breathe life into a world of stone. The true awe of Derinkuyu is measured in depth and darkness. This was not a cramped hideout, but a vertical metropolis plunging nearly 280 feet into the earth. 18 distinct levels have been identified by researchers, a stacked cityscape carved from the soft volcanic rock known as Tuff. While only 8 of those floors are accessible today, even that fraction reveals a blueprint of breathtaking ambition. Picture not a single massive cavern, but a honeycomb of thousands of individual rooms, from small family dwellings to vast communal halls, all connected by a nerve system of narrow, sloping passageways. The entire complex could have sheltered an estimated 20,000 individuals, a population equivalent to a sizable ancient city, but one that existed entirely unseen from the surface. This scale transforms the story from a tale of survival into one of astonishing urban planning. The layout was meticulously organized with distinct districts serving specific purposes. There were residential quarters with sleeping platforms carved into walls, spacious communal kitchens blackened by ancient soot, stables with tethering rings for livestock, storerooms for grain and oil, wineries, and even dedicated spaces for worship. Miles of tunnels wove these districts together, but this was no chaotic labyrinth. It was a deliberate design, a subterranean society with its own mapped logic. The separation of spaces was crucial. Imagine the noise and smell of animals in one dedicated area, far from the quiet chambers where families lived or scholars taught. This careful zoning reveals a community thinking not in terms of days but of generations, planning for a functional, long-term existence in the deep earth. Such a densely populated world, sealed behind stone doors, immediately presents an existential puzzle. How did 20,000 people breathe? How did they find water? The sheer grandeur of the city's blueprint makes these questions even more urgent, leading us directly to the silent, ingenious systems that served as its beating heart and lungs. The most brilliant aspect of Derinkuyu is not its size but its breadth. Sealing 20,000 people in a stone tomb would have been a death sentence within hours without a constant supply of fresh air. The solution reveals an engineering insight that feels almost modern. The builders carved over 50 vertical shafts, some plunging more than 300 feet straight down through the rock. These were not just holes, they were sophisticated atmospheric engines. The principle is simple physics: warm air rises. The body heat and cooking fires from the inhabited chambers below created a convection current. Stale, warm air would escape up through these chimneys, while cooler, fresh air was constantly drawn in from cleverly concealed surface openings, often disguised among the rocks of the hillside. This passive ventilation system created a perpetual, life-giving breeze throughout the entire complex, ensuring the atmosphere remained breathable for months or years. But the genius doubled down. Many of these deep shafts also functioned as wells, reaching all the way down to the natural water table. A single shaft could therefore deliver both air and water, the two absolute essentials for life, through one elegant, multi-purpose structure. It was a masterstroke of environmental control, turning a potential coffin into a sustainable habitat. Yet, even with air and water secured, security was the final, critical pillar. The city's defenders understood that a single breached entrance could doom everyone. Their answer was the rolling stone door. These are not ordinary gates. They are massive, millstone-like discs of solid rock, perfectly balanced within carved grooves in the tunnel walls. In a moment of threat, a few people could roll these immense plugs into place, completely sealing a corridor. Each level could be isolated from the next, creating a series of defensive fallback positions. An invader who managed to get past one door would find themselves in a dead-end tunnel, trapped between stone barriers, vulnerable to attack from small murder holes carved in the ceiling above. The network of tunnels itself was a defensive maze with low ceilings, sudden turns, and dead ends designed to confuse and slow down any hostile force who did not know the layout. This combination of environmental mastery and tactical design transformed a dark refuge into an impregnable redoubt. The people of Derinkuyu did not just hide in the earth, they learned to command it. They manipulated airflow like architects, directed water like hydrologists, and designed choke points like military strategists, all with simple tools and profound collective wisdom. Their survival depended not on magic, but on a deep, practical conversation with the stone itself, a conversation we are only now beginning to fully hear. Light never reached the living quarters of Derinkuyu, only the flickering, borrowed glow of oil lamps and tallow candles. In this world of perpetual twilight, society had to be rebuilt with meticulous care. A community of 20,000 could not survive on air shafts and stone doors alone. It required an invisible architecture of roles, rules, and shared purpose. At the top of this subterranean social pyramid were likely the elders and religious leaders, those who held the knowledge of the city's layout, its ventilation secrets, and the intricate rituals of sealing and unsealing. Their authority was not just spiritual, it was practical, born from the need for flawless coordination during a descent into the earth. Below them functioned the essential workers of the deep, the farmers who tended the limited livestock in the stables, the guards who monitored the ventilation shafts and door mechanisms, the water bearers, and the artisans who maintained tools and carved new spaces from the soft, tough rock. The heartbeat of daily life pulsed in the communal spaces. The shared kitchens, with their large hearths blackened by generations of use, were more than places to prepare food. They were social hubs where news was exchanged and stories were told. The smell of baking flatbread and simmering stew would have mingled with the earthy scent of the rock, a sensory anchor to normalcy. Nearby, the wineries and olive presses hummed with activity, transforming the precious harvests from the surface into stored sustenance, ensuring not just calories, but also the preservation of cultural staples like wine and oil. Even the stables, set apart to manage smell and waste, were integrated into the economy of survival, providing dairy, wool, and motive power for millstones. Children would have been raised with a unique duality, knowing the sunlit world above as a place of both danger and bounty, while the labyrinth below was their home, school, and playground. Education happened in low-ceilinged chambers, lessons passing on the oral history of their people, the skills needed to maintain their hidden world, and the sacred texts or traditions that defined their identity. Maintaining morale in this sunless existence depended on these very routines, the reaffirmation of social bonds over a shared meal, the comfort of familiar prayers in a dedicated chapel, the collective labor that gave everyone a role. The vibrancy of Derinkuyu was not in grand monuments, but in the quiet, persistent rhythm of community, a rhythm that turned a fortress of stone into a living, breathing home. This intricate social machine, however, faced its ultimate test not from outside invaders, but from the relentless pressure of time itself and the slow, inevitable process of being forgotten by the world above. Derinkuyu's greatest secret was that it was never alone. The stone doors and ventilation shafts were marvels of self-sufficiency, but the city's ultimate survival strategy lay in its connections. Archaeologists mapping the region made a discovery that expanded the story from a single fortress to an entire hidden landscape. A network of long, narrow tunnels, some wide enough for only one person to crawl through, stretched away from Derinkuyu's lower levels, heading for the horizon. These were not internal corridors but subterranean highways, linking Derinkuyu to other underground cities like Kaymakli, nearly 5 miles away. This transformed the purpose of each individual refuge entirely. They were not isolated bunkers but interconnected nodes in a vast regional web of safety. The implications of this tunnel network are profound. In a time of extreme danger, the population of one city could evacuate through these secret passages to another, spreading out the risk or finding a more secure location. It allowed for the movement of supplies, livestock, and information between communities, all completely hidden from the world above. This was a coordinated defense strategy on a scale that is difficult to overstate. Imagine the level of trust and planning required. Different communities, potentially speaking different dialects or following slightly different customs, had to agree on common tunnel dimensions, directional markers, and most critically, protocols for their use. Who had the right to open a connecting passage? How were messages relayed through kilometers of pitch-black tunnel? The likely answer is a system of runners, individuals who knew the routes by muscle memory and touch, carrying whispered words or simple tokens from one city to the next. Simple codes, perhaps a pattern of knocks on a stone door or the placement of a lamp in a niche, could signal friend from foe or indicate that a tunnel was clear. This interconnectedness reveals a society that thought in terms of ecosystems, not just individual survival. A drought or conflict affecting one surface settlement would not doom its people if they could retreat and then relocate through the earth to a sister city with better resources. It turned a collection of hiding places into a resilient, distributed network. The very existence of these tunnels suggests that the threat was not a singular event, but a persistent condition of life in ancient Cappadocia, a landscape where the true capital of the region was not a palace on a hill, but the dark, linked spaces beneath it. This staggering coordination forces us to reconsider the people of this era not as primitive or isolated, but as sophisticated logistical planners who engineered not just spaces but systems. Their greatest innovation was understanding that true security lies not in building a stronger wall, but in weaving a wider web. Yet, even the most perfectly designed web cannot hold forever against the slow, silent pressures of time and change. The stone walls of Derinkuyu hold more than just the echoes of footsteps, they hold the shape of prayers. Among the storerooms and stables, archaeologists found spaces of a different purpose entirely, rooms carved not for the body but for the spirit. These are the hidden churches, unmistakable in their design with crosses etched into the walls and simple altars hewn from the living rock. Their presence provides one of the strongest links between the underground city and the early Christian communities of Anatolia, who faced periods of intense hardship under Roman rule and later during Arab incursions. For them, Derinkuyu was far more than a fortress. It was a sacred refuge, a place where their most deeply held beliefs could survive when the world above turned hostile. These subterranean chapels are masterpieces of necessity. Lacking wood for pews or precious metals for decoration, the builders used the rock itself as their medium. They carved baptismal fonts directly into the floor, where new members could be welcomed into the community even in total secrecy. Small niches served as candle holders, their flickering light illuminating frescoes that have long since faded. Living quarters for clergy were often adjacent, allowing the spiritual leaders to remain close to their congregation and maintain the rhythms of daily worship. In a world where practicing their faith openly could mean grave danger, this ability to gather, to sing hymns in hushed tones, and to celebrate their rituals was an act of profound defiance and preservation. It was how they kept their identity alive, not just as a people, but as a community of belief. The psychological importance of these spaces cannot be overstated. During months or years of confinement, with the constant stress of unseen threats above, spiritual solace would have been as vital as food and air. The Church offered a framework for understanding their suffering, a source of hope, and a reinforcement of their shared values. It provided a moral and social anchor, a constant reminder that they were enduring this trial together for a purpose greater than mere survival. The very architecture speaks to this, with the cruciform shape of the larger chapels offering a familiar, comforting symmetry in the otherwise chaotic maze of tunnels. Every etched cross was a declaration, a statement that this darkness was temporary and that their light, however hidden, would not be extinguished. These religious artifacts and architectural choices offer historians some of the clearest clues about the city's later inhabitants. While the Phrygians or Hittites may have laid the first stones, it was likely these Christian communities who expanded Derinkuyu to its greatest extent, refining its systems and imprinting it with their cultural signature. Their faith did more than provide light in the literal darkness. It provided the blueprint for a resilient society. It taught patience, solidarity, and the long view, virtues essential for a life lived in waiting. This spiritual dimension completes our understanding of Derinkuyu, revealing it as a place where the human need for meaning was carved as deeply into the rock as the need for security. Yet, even the most devout sanctuary must one day fall silent, leaving behind only the empty altars and a mystery. Why would a community ever abandon a home they had fought so hard to protect? Feeding 20,000 people in the dark is a logistical nightmare of epic proportions. The architectural marvel of Derinkuyu would have meant nothing if its inhabitants starved within the first month. This leads us to the fourth great mystery of the city, not how it was built but how it was run. Sustaining a population the size of a small modern town, entirely cut off from the sun, required a master plan of storage, rationing, and waste management that rivals the complexity of any surface civilization. The evidence of this plan is written in the empty chambers. Archaeologists have identified vast, circular rooms with smooth, plastered walls, unmistakably designed as grain silos. These were not small containers, but massive subterranean reservoirs capable of holding enough wheat, barley, and legumes to feed thousands for many months. Nearby, rows of carved niches held enormous ceramic jars, some taller than a person, for storing olive oil, water, and salted meats. The wine cellars, with their fermentation vats and collections of barrels, point to more than just a desire for comfort. Wine was a source of calories, a preservative, and a safe alternative to potentially contaminated water. Every cubic foot of space was assigned a purpose, but storing the food was only the first step. Distributing it fairly and preventing hoarding during a prolonged crisis would have been a monumental social challenge. This implies a highly structured system, likely overseen by a council of elders or designated quartermasters. Rations would have been calculated with meticulous care, based on family size, age, and contribution to the community's upkeep. The communal kitchens were central to this system, not just for cooking, but as distribution hubs where prepared food could be shared under supervision, ensuring no one was forgotten. Then came the problem of what happened after the food was consumed. The management of waste in a sealed environment was a matter of life and death. Human waste would have been collected in specific, isolated chambers, often at the lowest levels, or in sealed pits that could be treated with lime to reduce odor and disease. Other organic refuse might have been composted in dedicated areas to eventually enrich the limited soil used for any subterranean gardening efforts. The presence of livestock, evidenced by tethering rings and troughs in the stables, added another layer of complexity. These animals provided milk, wool, and occasional meat, but they also required feed, water, and created their own waste. Their designated areas were strategically placed near ventilation shafts to manage smell, and were likely on levels with direct tunnel access for eventual removal of manure, which could have been dried and used as fuel for fires. The success of this entire operation hinged on preventing two invisible killers, famine and illness. One failed harvest on the surface before retreat, one contaminated water shaft, or one outbreak of sickness in the crowded quarters could have unraveled everything. The fact that Derinkuyu shows signs of being used for centuries is a testament to their administrative genius. They understood sustainability in its most literal sense, creating a closed-loop system where every input and output was accounted for. This turns our view of the city from a static shelter into a dynamic, living organism. Its heartbeat was not just the flow of air through the shafts, but the silent, disciplined movement of grain from silo to kitchen, of water from well to jar, of waste from living space to disposal pit. The real wonder is that they managed this vast, invisible economy without light, without modern tools, and under the constant shadow of threat. Their survival depended as much on social cooperation and meticulous planning as it did on stone doors and deep wells. It was a triumph of collective discipline, a lesson in how civilization endures not just by building strong walls, but by forging even stronger agreements. Derinkuyu stands as a masterpiece, but it is not the only chapter in humanity's story of going underground. To truly appreciate its singular genius, we must place it alongside other subterranean wonders from across the globe. Each one tells a different story about why people choose the dark. Take the remarkable settlement of Cappadocia in the Australian outback. Here, the motivation was not invasion, but an unrelenting climate. In the early 1900s, opal miners, seeking relief from scorching surface temperatures that could shatter 120 degrees Fahrenheit, began carving their homes into the sides of hills. These dugouts provided a natural, constant coolness, making life bearable. Yet, Cappadocia is largely a collection of individual family dwellings, a pragmatic adaptation to environment, not a single, coordinated fortress designed for an entire civilization to vanish into. Then consider the vast, haunting cisterns beneath Istanbul, like the Basilica cistern. Built in the 6th century, its forest of recycled marble columns supports a cavernous space designed for one critical purpose: to hold millions of gallons of fresh water for the city above. It is a breathtaking feat of hydraulic engineering, but it was never meant for people to live within its echoing, damp halls. Its beauty is functional, serving the surface world it was built beneath. Even within Turkey itself, the nearby underground city of Cappadocia, while connected to Derinkuyu by those secret tunnels, is shallower and laid out in a more sprawling, horizontal pattern. It feels more like a large, fortified village that burrowed down, whereas Derinkuyu presents as a vertical metropolis conceived from the start as a unified whole. This comparative view brings Derinkuyu's unique achievement into sharp, stunning focus. What sets it apart is its comprehensive, purpose-built design for long-term, communal survival. It wasn't just a cool place to live or a reservoir for a resource. It was an entire ecosystem in stone. Its depth, plunging the equivalent of an 18-story building into the earth, is unmatched in scale for a habitation site. More importantly, its systems were fully integrated. The ventilation shafts that doubled as wells, the rolling doors that worked in concert with the tunnel maze, the zoning that separated stables from schools. This was not an adaptation, it was a premeditated blueprint for preserving society itself. The pressures of the Cappadocian region, a crossroads of empires and conflicts, forged this specific response. It forced innovation beyond simple shelter into the realm of creating a sustainable, defensible, and socially functional world from nothing but volcanic rock and human will. Understanding its peers does not diminish Derinkuyu, it elevates it. It shows us that while many cultures sought refuge below, the builders of this deep city pursued something far more ambitious, a way to keep the flame of their community alive indefinitely in the most unlikely of places. Their achievement stands as a pinnacle of a very specific ancient art, the art of building not just to hide but to endure. And that raises a final, poignant question about endurance. What happens when the danger finally passes, or when the memory of the refuge itself begins to fade? The stone itself was a willing collaborator. Derinkuyu's existence hinges on a geological gift, a unique canvas that made such monumental carving possible. This is the soft, volcanic rock known as tuff, the foundational material of the entire Cappadocian region. millions of years ago, this area was a dramatic volcanic landscape. Enormous eruptions from Mount Erciyes and other volcanoes blanketed the land in thick layers of ash, which over immense stretches of time compressed and solidified into a stone with a remarkable duality. It is soft enough to be carved with simple bronze or iron tools, yet when exposed to air it hardens, forming a stable, load-bearing structure. This was the perfect medium. Imagine trying to carve a city from granite. The effort would be unimaginable. Now imagine carving it from a firm but workable material, something closer to hardened clay or a very dense sandstone. That was the Tuff. It allowed generations of builders to sculpt their world with relative efficiency, hollowing out rooms, smoothing walls, and carving staircases with a persistence that harder stone would have defeated. But its genius goes beyond mere workability. The Tuff is naturally insulating, keeping the underground spaces cool in the scorching summer and surprisingly warm during the cold Anatolian winters. It also possesses a degree of plasticity, allowing it to absorb minor seismic shifts without catastrophic cracking. This geological stability was non-negotiable. The entire city depended on the ceiling not collapsing under the weight of the earth above. The rock's natural composition also aided in ventilation, as its slightly porous nature helped regulate moisture and airflow alongside the engineered shafts. This partnership with the landscape is visible everywhere above ground as well. Cappadocia is famous for its fairy chimneys, those towering, cone-shaped rock formations that look like something from a dream. These are also made of tuff, capped by a harder basalt layer that protected the softer stone beneath from complete erosion. People carved homes, churches, and dovecotes directly into these pinnacles. Derinkuyu, then, is not an isolated anomaly, but the most profound expression of a culture that learned to read the land as an architectural blueprint. Where others saw only strange hills and soft stone, they saw potential. They understood that the earth here was not a barrier to be conquered, but a shelter to be revealed. Hundreds of other underground complexes, some still being discovered, dot the region, each a testament to this same geological opportunity. The volcanic fires that once made the surface uninhabitable ultimately provided the very material for a new kind of civilization beneath it. In Cappadocia, the ground did not just support life, it invited transformation, offering its own substance to be shaped into a sanctuary. This deep symbiosis between people and place raises a haunting final question. If the stone was so perfect and the design so flawless, what finally caused the doors of this deep world to be sealed for the last time? The final mystery of Derinkuyu is not how it was built, but why it was ever left behind. After centuries of perfecting this underworld, of carving its halls and stocking its silos, the people simply walked away. The massive stone doors rolled shut for the last time, sealing a world of memory into absolute silence. Historians piece together several plausible theories for this great abandonment, each a story of changing times. The most hopeful scenario is that the age of relentless invasions finally passed. With the consolidation of the Byzantine Empire and later the relative stability brought by the Seljuk and Ottoman periods, the surface world may have become secure enough that the profound hardship of life underground was no longer a necessary trade. A community might have chosen sunlight and fresh air over the safety of stone, gradually migrating to new villages above, leaving their fortress as a relic of a darker past. Another possibility is geological. The region is seismically active, and a significant earthquake could have collapsed critical ventilation shafts or blocked the main entrances, rendering the city uninhabitable. If the life-giving airflow was cut off or the tunnels became impassable, the sanctuary would have transformed into a tomb in an instant, forcing a sudden, permanent evacuation. There is also the slow, silent threat of erosion and water. Over centuries, shifts in the water table or the gradual seepage of moisture could have made lower levels unstable or flooded. shrinking the usable space until it was no longer viable for a large population. Whatever the precise cause, the result was a gradual fading from living memory. Over generations, the knowledge of the city's exact location and purpose softened into local legend, tales of a deep place in the earth, stories told more as folklore than as practical survival instruction. The entrances were buried by landslides, covered by new construction, or simply forgotten as the landscape itself changed. Derinkuyu did not vanish in a dramatic cataclysm. It seems to have been gently reclaimed by the very earth that once protected it. This long silence is what makes its modern discovery so powerful. For centuries, it existed as a perfect snapshot, a paused civilization untouched by the wars, empires, and innovations unfolding on the surface. Its abandonment speaks to a profound truth about human endeavor. We build monuments to our fears and our hopes with incredible passion, investing generations of labor into a vision of survival. But when the context that gave birth to that vision changes, even the most monumental creation can be set aside, left to sleep until a future age rediscovers it and wonders at the story it tells. The empty halls of Derinkuyu are a testament not to failure, but to adaptation, a sign that its people eventually found a way to live in the light again, leaving their masterpiece of shadow behind as a message in stone for us to decipher. The silence of Derinkuyu was broken by the careful scrape of a trowel, not the crash of an invading army. Since that chance discovery in the 1960s, the city's story has been rewritten not by warriors but by scholars. Modern archaeology here is a delicate dance with the dark, a patient process of listening to what the stone and soil have to say. Teams do not rush in with heavy machinery. They move with the caution of surgeons, knowing that a single misstep could collapse a ceiling that has held for a millennium or destroy a fragile artifact preserved in the dry, still air. Their primary tools are often simple: brushes, fine picks, and meticulous documentation. They map the labyrinth with laser scanners, creating three-dimensional blueprints of passages that human eyes have not seen in centuries. To understand when these halls were active, they collect tiny clues, carbon dating charcoal from ancient hearths, analyzing pottery styles that evolved over generations, and studying the layers of sediment that settled on floors after each period of use. A single olive pit or a grape seed found in a storage room can tell a story about diet and trade networks. Each artifact is a word in a sentence. A simple bronze oil lamp found resting on a carved ledge speaks of the quality of light that pushed back the darkness. A small, worn spindle whorl tells of women passing time by spinning wool in the communal areas. A ceramic jar with a cross etched into its side before firing connects a physical object directly to the faith of its owner. These are not treasures in the glittering sense. They are fragments of daily life, the quiet evidence of people who are not just surviving, but living with intention. Perhaps the most significant finds are the religious items, small crosses and fragments of inscriptions, which have been crucial in piecing together the timeline of the city's later chapters, helping to confirm its role as a Christian refuge during specific eras of conflict. Yet for all this painstaking work, Derinkuyu guards its secrets closely. Large sections, particularly on the deepest levels, remain inaccessible to researchers. Some are blocked by deliberate, ancient sealing, as if the last people to leave wanted certain passages forgotten forever. Others are unstable, their ceilings fractured by seismic activity over the ages, making exploration too dangerous. These sealed tunnels are a constant reminder of the limits of our knowledge. Every season of excavation adds a new paragraph to the city's biography, but the full book is still being assembled, page by patient page. The work is slow, respectful, and driven by a profound curiosity, not to loot but to listen. Each layer of dust removed is a layer of time peeled back, bringing us closer to the whispered conversations, the shared meals, and the collective hopes of the 20,000 souls who once called this profound darkness home. The deepest secrets of Derinkuyu are still locked away, while visitors today can walk through 8 remarkable levels. That is less than half the story. Below the accessible chambers, perhaps another 10 levels descend into absolute darkness, their passages choked with rubble or sealed shut with a deliberate, ancient mortar made from volcanic ash and clay. These are not accidental collapses but purposeful closures. Someone, centuries ago, took great care to wall off entire sections of their own city. The question of why is a mystery that hangs in the stale air of the lowest open tunnels. Were these deepest areas damaged in an earthquake and deemed too dangerous to reopen? Did they contain something the community wished to hide forever or perhaps protect? The most practical theory suggests they were sealed as a final defensive measure during a prolonged abandonment, a way to permanently secure the lowest reaches from any potential intruder who might later find the upper doors. Yet the act feels so final, so absolute, it sparks the imagination. Could those sealed passages lead to even more astonishing feats of engineering? Perhaps a primary water source so deep it was deemed the city's ultimate lifeline, to be hidden at all costs. Might they contain expansive, untouched living quarters or storage halls, a perfect time capsule of daily life frozen behind a wall of stone? The most tantalizing possibility is that some of these blocked tunnels are not dead ends, but the beginnings of long corridors leading to other, entirely unknown underground settlements, expanding the hidden network far beyond our current maps. Modern technology offers glimpses but not answers. Ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging suggest vast, hollow spaces below, confirming the city's rumored depth, but they cannot reveal what fills those spaces. Each sealed doorway is a cliffhanger in an ancient story, a reminder that our understanding of Derinkuyu is based only on the chapters its builders chose to leave open. This unfinished exploration is what keeps the city alive in the modern mind. It is not a solved puzzle, but an ongoing conversation between the past and the future. The sealed passages stand as a quiet challenge to the next generation of archaeologists, equipped with ever more delicate tools and non-invasive scanners. They promise that Derinkuyu's final revelations are still to come, that the full measure of this underground world remains, for now, a wonderful and profound speculation. The silent city of Derinkuyu has stepped out of the shadows and into the spotlight of our collective imagination. Its story of a hidden world, meticulously carved and ingeniously designed, resonates far beyond the dusty plains of Cappadocia, finding a home in the stories we tell ourselves. You can see its influence in the grand, subterranean halls of fantasy literature, where dwarf kingdoms like those in Tolkien's Middle-earth echo the same principles of deep earth living, communal fortitude, and masterful stonework. These fictional realms borrow the awe of a civilization thriving in the dark, a concept Derinkuyu proves is not mere fantasy, but a historical reality. The city's very structure serves as a blueprint for countless video game dungeons and science fiction hideouts, places where heroes discover forgotten societies that chose to retreat from the surface world. In film and documentary, its winding tunnels provide the perfect, palpable setting for tales of adventure, archaeology, and suspense, because walking those passages feels like stepping into a myth. But why does this particular place captivate us so deeply? It taps into universal, almost primal themes. The idea of a hidden world speaks to our childhood curiosity about what lies under a rug or behind a secret door scaled to an epic level. Its narrative of a community surviving against impossible odds aligns with our love for underdog stories and tales of resilience. And the concept of a lost civilization, preserved in a perfect, silent snapshot, fuels our endless fascination with the puzzles of the past. Derinkuyu works so powerfully in popular culture because it blurs a fundamental line. It is an authenticated, historical site that feels like it was pulled from the pages of a thrilling novel. Its reality is more compelling than fiction because we know that every corridor was walked by real people, every stone door was rolled shut in genuine fear, and every air shaft was carved with a collective hope for tomorrow. This connection between ancient ingenuity and modern creativity is a testament to the story's enduring power. We are inspired by their tangible solution to existential threat, their answer carved not in words but in rock. The city reminds us that the most captivating stories are often the true ones, waiting patiently in the dark for their moment to be rediscovered and retold, proving that human innovation in any age is the ultimate source of wonder. The silence of Derinkuyu was never truly silent. Beyond the visual spectacle of carved rooms and rolling doors lies a sensory mystery often overlooked: the city's unique sonic environment. In the absolute darkness, sound would have been a vital thread of connection, a medium as important as the air they breathed. The acoustics of this stone world were shaped by its very architecture. The narrow, tubular corridors and low, curved ceilings of the tunnels would have channeled whispers, carrying them surprising distances. A spoken word at one end of a long passage could travel with eerie clarity to a listener dozens of feet away, transformed by the rock into a soft, resonant murmur. This was not an accident of design, it was a feature. Certain spaces, particularly the larger communal rooms and the cruciform churches, were likely carved with acoustic properties in mind. Their shapes would have allowed a leader's instructions or a priest's chant to fill the chamber, reaching everyone gathered without the need to shout. The resonance of a hymn sung in unison in such a space would have been profoundly powerful, a collective vibration felt in the chest, weaving the community together in a shared sensory experience that light could not provide. This sonic design had a deeply practical side as well. Consider the potential for a simple, ingenious warning system. A designated guard posted near a ventilation shaft, which acted as a natural sound funnel from the surface, could listen for specific signals. A pattern of taps on a rock at an entrance or a coded call sent down a long, straight tunnel could relay a simple message faster than a runner could navigate the maze. The drip of water from a seep in the wall, a constant in some lower chambers, would have provided a rhythmic backdrop, a natural metronome marking the passage of time in the unchanging dark. To understand Derinkuyu only as a silent tomb is to miss a fundamental layer of its reality. It was a living soundscape, the shuffle of feet on soft volcanic dust, the lowing of a cow in a distant stable, the crackle of a hearth in a communal kitchen, the muffled conversations of families in adjoining rooms. All these sounds would have blended into a soft, continuous hum of life. This auditory texture reminds us that this was not a place of mute fear, but of adapted normalcy. By listening for its soundscape, we move closer to hearing the past not as a museum diorama, but as a lived experience where every echo carried meaning, every whisper could be a prayer or a plan, and the very stone was tuned to the frequency of human community. A goat's bleat echoed differently in the stone stables of Derinkuyu. This was not the sound of a pastoral surface farm, but the vital hum of a managed ecosystem operating in perpetual twilight. The presence of dedicated animal quarters, complete with tethering rings and carved troughs, reveals a critical truth about the city's purpose. This was not a temporary panic room. It was a long-term habitat designed to replicate the core functions of a surface village. Goats and sheep would have been the primary livestock, chosen for their compact size, hardiness, and versatile yields. They provided a continuous, renewable stream of nourishment: milk for drinking and making cheese, wool for spinning into clothing and blankets, and only when absolutely necessary, meat. Their very presence transformed the underground world from a sterile bunker into a living, breathing agricultural space. But feeding these animals and the thousands of people alongside them required a sophisticated strategy. The idea of traditional, sun-drenched fields was impossible here. Instead, the inhabitants likely practiced a form of limited, specialized cultivation. Near ventilation shafts where faint traces of light and fresh air were strongest, they might have grown hardy, fast-sprouting plants in containers of soil hauled from above, things like lentils, certain leafy greens, or herbs. More intriguing is the potential for cultivating mushrooms and other fungi in dark, damp chambers. These organisms thrive without sunlight, breaking down organic material like straw or animal bedding into edible protein. This kind of mycoculture represents a brilliant adaptation, turning waste into food within the city's own closed environment. Every resource was part of a cycle. The preservation of seeds carefully stored in sealed ceramic jars was an act of profound faith in the future. It was a promise that one day they would return to the surface to plant again. Meanwhile, below ground, nothing was wasted. Animal manure collected in the stables was not merely a problem to be managed, it was a precious commodity. Mixed with other organic refuse and likely composted in isolated pits, it would have been processed into fertilizer for those limited growing areas or dried into cakes for fuel in the communal hearths. Even the carbon dioxide breathed out by people and animals was part of the equation, possibly benefiting the plants placed near air inflow shafts. This intricate dance of inputs and outputs shows a society thinking in terms of generations, not just seasons. They engineered a bio-sustainable loop within their geologic shelter. The goat, the seed jar, the compost pit, these were not afterthoughts, they were central pillars of the design. Survival depended on this integration, on bringing a sliver of the natural world's regenerative power into the heart of the rock. It was the ultimate act of domesticating the dark, proving that resilience is not just about building strong walls, but about weaving the fragile, persistent threads of life itself into the fabric of your refuge. This careful stewardship of life beneath the earth leads us to a quieter, more personal dimension of their existence. How did individuals and families carve out a sense of normalcy and identity in a world without a horizon? The carvings on the walls were more than just decoration. In the flickering lamplight of Derinkuyu, a simple cross or a repeated geometric pattern held a power that transcended its shape. While the rolling doors and air shafts addressed the survival of the body, another, quieter form of architecture was at work, one designed for the soul. To view this underground city solely as a military installation is to miss a profound layer of its purpose. For the people who lived and worshipped here, the very act of descending may have been imbued with deep symbolic weight. In many ancient belief systems, the earth is not just dirt and rock, it is the realm of the ancestral, the protective, and the sacred. A descent into its depths can symbolize a journey of purification, a retreat into a womb-like state of safety before a hoped-for rebirth into the light. The placement of the cruciform churches and prayer rooms is particularly telling. They are not hidden away in forgotten corners, but are often centrally located within residential districts or positioned at the convergence of major tunnels. This suggests that spiritual practice was not a private, occasional act, but the central pillar around which daily underground life was organized. The architecture itself facilitated this. To reach a chapel, one might walk down a long, narrow passageway, a physical journey that mirrored a metaphorical passage from the profane world of danger above to a sacred, protected space below. The low, curved ceilings of these chambers created an intimate, enveloping atmosphere, focusing attention inward and upward, even while buried deep beneath the surface. The recurring symbols etched with care into door frames and altars served as constant reminders. A fish, an early Christian symbol, was not just a code, it was a declaration of identity and hope. A spiral or labyrinth pattern might have represented the journey of life or the protective embrace of the divine. Even the city's verticality could be read symbolically, with each descending level moving the community further from the chaos of the world and closer to a foundational, primordial stability. This perspective transforms our understanding of Derinkuyu from a fortress into a sanctuary in the truest sense. It was a man-made underworld that provided metaphysical armor. The physical security of the stone doors was reinforced by the spiritual security of ritual and symbol. In a time of extreme peril, the community was shielded not only by engineering but by belief. The city's design nourished a sense of cosmic order when the surface world seemed ruled by chaos. It answered a profound human need to find meaning in hardship, to believe their suffering was part of a larger, protective narrative. The very rock that sheltered their bodies became the canvas for their faith, suggesting that their greatest innovation was this fusion of the practical and the spiritual, building a refuge that guarded hope as diligently as it guarded life. The city's greatest enemy was not an invader but gravity itself, keeping a space the size of a small town from collapsing under the weight of the world required a silent, brilliant conversation with physics. The builders of Derinkuyu were master structural engineers, working without formal calculations but with a profound, intuitive grasp of static forces. Their primary tool was the arch. In chamber after chamber, they avoided flat ceilings, which are weak points under immense pressure. Instead, they carved rounded, vaulted, or domed roofs. This simple, elegant shape is nature's own solution to bearing weight, as it redirects the downward force of the rock above outwards and down into the walls, preventing a single point of failure. You can see this principle in a simple stone bridge or even in the curve of an eggshell, a shape of remarkable strength. They complemented this with thick, robust pillars left standing at regular intervals in larger halls. These were not afterthoughts but integral parts of the original carving process, left in place to act as central supports, like the load-bearing columns in a modern building. The entire layout of the city shows this strategic thinking. Rooms were not stacked directly on top of one another in a precarious column. Instead, they were staggered, with smaller chambers on upper levels and larger, more critical spaces like churches or communal halls often positioned where the rock was strongest or supported by multiple pillars. This careful distribution of weight ensured that the stress of the overburden was shared across a wide area of the living rock, preventing any single zone from becoming a fatal weak point. Their deep understanding of the tough rock itself was their most crucial advantage. They did not fight the material, they collaborated with it. By carving with the natural grain and stratification of the volcanic stone, they followed its inherent strength. They knew where it was most stable and avoided areas with visible cracks or faults. The process itself was a form of testing, as they would have listened to the sound of their chisels and watched how the stone responded, learning its limits through touch and observation. This mastery of passive forces created an invisible shield. Every arched ceiling was a calculation against collapse, every strategically placed pillar a declaration of faith in their own craftsmanship. For the families living there, this engineering was the ultimate reassurance, a guarantee that the sanctuary they trusted with their lives would not become their tomb. It was a monument not to conquest but to stability, a promise carved in stone that the earth, when understood and respected, could be made into a protector. This relentless focus on preservation leads us to a more intimate scale, to the objects they touched and the personal choices they made in the quiet moments between alarms. A community of 20,000 people cannot survive on rules of stone alone. With the immense pressure of shared confinement, the potential for internal conflict was a constant, quiet threat. Disputes over rationed food, accusations of hoarding, disagreements in shared living spaces, all of these minor frictions could escalate into fractures that would doom everyone. The archaeological footprint of Derinkuyu suggests this community understood that social cohesion was their most vital and most fragile resource. Among the thousands of carved rooms, researchers point to certain larger, central chambers that lack the clear markers of a kitchen, stable, or church. These spaces, often positioned at the junction of several residential tunnels, may have served as council rooms. Here, in the dim light, elders or elected representatives would have gathered not to worship but to deliberate. They would have mediated disputes, interpreted the community's unwritten codes of conduct, and made difficult decisions about resource allocation. This was likely where the social contract was negotiated and reaffirmed, a process as critical as maintaining the air shaft. The concept of justice in such an environment would have leaned heavily toward restoration, not punishment. Exile to the surface was a death sentence, and imprisonment in the dark was a drain on precious resources. Therefore, resolving a conflict meant finding a way to reintegrate the individual back into the interdependent whole. A person accused of taking extra rations might be assigned extra labor duties, repairing a tunnel wall or hauling water, a solution that addressed the harm and reinforced their value to the group. The very layout of the city enforced a kind of transparency. In close quarters with thin rock walls, privacy was scarce. Behavior was naturally subject to the gentle, constant pressure of communal observation. This wasn't about surveillance, but about mutual accountability. Your neighbor's survival was tied directly to your own actions. This fostered a powerful cultural emphasis on consensus and collective responsibility. The governance structure was probably less a formal hierarchy and more a fluid system of respected authority, where those with specific knowledge, like the engineers of the ventilation system or the keepers of the grain silos, held sway in their domain. Maintaining order required a shared story, a narrative that their hardship had a purpose and that every member's cooperation was sacred. The peace inside Derinkuyu was not the absence of disagreement, but the presence of a system to navigate it. They built a legal and social architecture within the geological one, understanding that the strongest stone door could be shattered from the inside by a single, unchecked spark of discord. Their survival proves they mastered this most human of arts, forging unity in the deepest dark. The recognition of Derinkuyu's importance now echoes on a global scale. It stands not merely as a Turkish national treasure, but as a shared chapter in human history, formally protected as part of the Gurim National Park and the rock sites of Cappadocia UNESCO World Heritage Listing. This designation is a promise to the future, an international commitment to preserve this fragile masterpiece of stone and story. The honor comes with a profound responsibility, one that centers on a modern-day tension. How do you share a wonder with the world without letting the world love it to death? The soft, tough rock that made the city possible is also its greatest vulnerability. The scuff of thousands of footsteps, the humidity from human breath, even the gentle touch of a hand on a wall can cause gradual, cumulative wear. The very act of admiring it risks erasing the fine details carved by its creators. To walk its accessible levels today is to step into a carefully managed experience. You feel the immediate drop in temperature, a cool, constant dampness in the air that carries the scent of ancient earth. Your shoulders may brush against the narrow walls of passages designed to slow invaders, and you must stoop beneath low arches, a physical reminder of the scale its builders lived with. In the larger chambers, your voice carries with that same resonant quality its inhabitants knew, and the sheer vertical depth, glimpsed down a stairwell disappearing into blackness, delivers a visceral sense of awe. This access is made possible by a framework of stewardship. Visitor numbers are monitored, pathways are clearly defined to prevent wandering into unstable sections, and lighting is minimal and indirect to reduce environmental impact. The massive stone doors remain stationary, their grooves protected. Every guideline, from prohibitions on flash photography to restricted areas, is a small defense in a long-term campaign for preservation. The modern story of Derinkuyu is thus a dual narrative. It is a site of pilgrimage for the curious, offering a direct, humbling connection to an ingenious past. Simultaneously, it is a living laboratory for conservators, archaeologists, and engineers who work to stabilize walls, monitor air quality, and ensure its structural integrity. This balance between opening a window to the past and keeping the window itself intact is the defining challenge of its present age. It transforms the city from a relic into a conversation, where every visitor becomes a temporary guardian, invited not just to see, but to understand the fragility of the history they are witnessing and to walk softly through a world built to endure. We know every stone door, but not a single name. The 10th mystery of Derinkuyu is an absence, a silence where we expect a signature. Who were the master architects, the individual minds who first envisioned a city in the dark, who calculated the angles of ventilation shafts and the load-bearing strength of a vaulted ceiling? Their identities have dissolved into time, leaving behind only their work as a testament. This anonymity forces us to ask how such specialized knowledge was held and shared. Did a single visionary engineer draw plans in the dust, or was this wisdom the product of a guild, a secretive order of stone workers who passed their techniques from father to son over centuries? The city's organic, layered growth suggests the latter. It feels less like a project built from a single blueprint and more like a living language, where each generation added a new sentence in stone, following the grammatical rules established by their ancestors. These rules were likely practical and oral, a collection of proven maxims. They would have known, for instance, exactly how deep to carve before the tuff became unstable, or the precise slope needed for a tunnel to drain water without collapsing. This was not theoretical engineering, but applied wisdom, learned by doing and refined through collective memory. The master builders worked without fame, their genius distributed across countless hands. They understood that their legacy was not a name on a plaque, but the continued breath of their community in a time of crisis. Their achievement stands as a profound monument to a different kind of contribution, one where the individual dissolves into the communal effort for a goal greater than personal glory. We walk through their masterpiece, touching the tool marks they left, surrounded by the cool, still air they engineered, and we honor them not with a biography, but with a simple, humbling recognition of their skill. Their names are lost, but their conversation with the stone echoes through every corridor, a reminder that history's most enduring foundations are often laid by those who never thought to sign their work. The rock held a perfect, steady chill. In the world above, Cappadocia's climate swung between extremes, with summer sun baking the plains and winter winds carving through the valleys. Yet, just a few dozen feet below the surface, a remarkable stability reigned. The temperature within Derinkuyu remained constant, hovering around a cool 55 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. This was not an accident of location, but a direct gift from the geology itself. The thick layers of volcanic tuff that formed the city's walls and ceilings acted as a phenomenal natural insulator. The rock's porous structure trapped air, creating a buffer that resisted the temperature fluctuations of the surface world. Heat from the summer could not penetrate deep enough to warm the chambers, and the cold of winter was similarly kept at bay. This passive climate control was one of the city's most ingenious and comfortable features, a silent system working without any moving parts or fuel. For the inhabitants, this constant coolness was far more than a mere comfort. It was a critical component of their long-term survival strategy. A stable temperature was essential for preserving the enormous food supplies that sustained 20,000 people. The grain stored in those deep silos, the olives and legumes in ceramic jars, even the cheese and dried meats, all would have spoiled quickly in the heat or been damaged by freezing. The 55-degree environment created a natural refrigeration system, dramatically slowing decay and preventing mold, ensuring that precious calories lasted for months or even years. This stable climate also provided a humane environment for the community and their livestock. People could sleep without sweltering, work without freezing, and maintain their health more easily than in a damp, fluctuating cave. The animals in their stables were spared the stress of extreme temperatures, which helped them continue to produce milk and remain healthy. The earth itself, often seen as a dark and forbidding place, was providing a gentle, consistent hospitality. This ancient insight into passive thermal regulation is something modern architects and engineers are only now fully rediscovering and appreciating. Today's sustainable design principles often look to the ground for what is called earth sheltering or geothermal mass, using the planet's stable subterranean temperature to naturally heat and cool buildings above, drastically reducing energy needs. The builders of Derinkuyu mastered this concept millennia ago. They understood intuitively that the planet offered not just shelter from weapons, but shelter from the elements. Their city was a testament to working with the environment, not against it. They did not fight to heat a cold cavern or cool a hot one. They simply positioned their entire world within the Earth's most reliable thermal zone. In doing so, they crafted a habitat of profound resilience, where the very rock that hid them also cradled them in a perpetual, gentle coolness, proving that the deepest refuge could also be the most perfectly temperate. Derinkuyu's deepest lesson is not about stone, but about spirit. This city is a fossilized moment of human decision, a collective choice to respond to a terrifying world not with surrender, but with breathtaking invention. It showcases our species' most profound talent, the ability to adapt not just our bodies, but our entire way of life to the most extreme of circumstances. When the surface became untenable, they did not merely dig a hole to cower in, they engineered a new horizon underground. This shift from passive hiding to active world building is the city's true legacy. It speaks to a resilience that is creative, communal, and stubbornly hopeful. The people of Derinkuyu looked into the face of perpetual threat and answered with architecture, with social contracts, with systems for air and water and justice. They planned not for a season, but for generations, investing their labor in a future they might never see, trusting that their children's children would need the sanctuary they carved. That kind of long-term vision requires a powerful bond of community cohesion. In the dark, individualism would have been a fatal luxury. Survival depended on a shared purpose, on the understanding that the person carving the ventilation shaft, the elder mediating a dispute, and the child grinding grain were all part of a single, living organism. Their innovation was born from necessity, yes, but it was fueled by a collective will to preserve not just lives but a way of life. This story challenges us in a quiet way. It asks what we, in our own time, consider worth protecting at all costs. What would we build? What social agreements would we forge? What knowledge would we preserve if faced with a similar existential pressure? Derinkuyu does not glorify the fear that created it. Instead, it celebrates the brilliant, cooperative response that fear provoked. It stands as a monument to the idea that when pressed to the edge, humanity often reveals its most ingenious and unified self. The city's silent halls are not a tomb of a lost people, but a testament to a spirit that refused to be lost. In the end, their greatest creation was not the city itself, but the enduring proof that even in the deepest dark, we possess an innate capacity to imagine and to build a new dawn. The final stone door may yet be opened by a machine. Our understanding of Derinkuyu is poised on the edge of a new era, one where the tools of exploration are shifting from shovels and brushes to sensors and algorithms. The sealed passages and unmapped depths that have guarded their secrets for centuries are now being gently interrogated by technologies that can see through solid rock. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses of energy deep into the earth, painting a ghostly image of hollow spaces and structural anomalies without moving a single grain of soil. LiDAR, which uses laser light to create impossibly precise three-dimensional maps, could scan the entire Cappadocian landscape from above, revealing subtle surface depressions or hidden airshaft entrances that mark the locations of other, unknown subterranean networks connected to Derinkuyu. These are the non-invasive detectives, allowing archaeologists to plan with a kind of X-ray vision before any physical excavation begins. The most tantalizing possibilities, however, lie in the potential for robotic explorers. Imagine slender, agile robots equipped with lights and high-resolution cameras designed to navigate the narrowest, most unstable tunnels that are far too dangerous for human researchers. These machines could slip through cracks or drill tiny boreholes to send probes into the completely sealed lower levels. What might their lenses capture? An untouched communal hall with pottery still arranged as it was left, an isolated chapel with preserved frescoes on the walls, perhaps even the original construction tools left behind by the workers who carved the final chamber. These robots could carry sensors to analyze the ancient air, testing for traces of organic materials or mapping temperature and humidity gradients to understand the city's final moments before it was abandoned. This marriage of ancient mystery and modern innovation promises to rewrite the final chapters of Derinkuyu's story. The sealed levels are not an end but a cliffhanger. Future excavations, guided by this precise data, could reveal the city's ultimate scale, confirming whether the rumored 18 levels are fact. They might trace the long-hypothesized tunnel to Kaymakli not as a theory, but as a mapped, tangible highway under the earth. They could even discover that Derinkuyu is not the capital of this hidden world, but merely one district in a vast, regional subterranean metropolis we are only beginning to comprehend. Every scan, every new digital map is a translation tool, helping us read the stones of yesterday with the vocabulary of tomorrow. The silent city has waited for over a millennium, its full story held in the dark. Now, with quiet beeps and glowing screens, we are learning how to listen. The city's ultimate message is not a single answer, but a question etched in stone. Derinkuyu's legacy is a mirror, reflecting back at us whatever we most need to see in its silent, carved halls. For some, it stands as a sobering monument to the perils of conflict, a testament to the lengths a society will go to when the surface world becomes too dangerous to inhabit. It is a physical archive of fear, a reminder that security is a fragile concept, and that the drive for safety can reshape a civilization's entire relationship with the earth. For others, its brilliance lies in its ancient blueprint for sustainable living. The passive ventilation, the water management, the closed-loop systems of food and waste all speak to a profound harmony with the environment, an intuitive understanding of living within limits that feels urgently relevant today. It is a masterclass in resilience engineering, built not with microchips but with observation and communal wisdom. For many more, its most powerful echo is that of faith and community. The hidden churches and the evidence of structured social life reveal a people who clung to meaning and to each other in the deepest dark. It is a monument not to kings or conquests, but to the quiet, stubborn power of collective identity and shared belief to endure against overwhelming odds. Perhaps above all, Derinkuyu is simply an unforgettable reminder of human ingenuity. It is proof that when pressed to the edge, our species does not only break, it also builds. We solve impossible problems. We carve light from shadow, air from rock, and community from isolation. The city challenges our modern arrogance, asking us to look at our sophisticated tools and consider what we could create with nothing but chisels, cooperation, and a desperate will to survive. Its story does not end in the past. It invites itself into our present moment of uncertainty and change. In a world facing its own existential pressures, from environmental shifts to global tensions, Derinkuyu's silent corridors pose a quiet, personal question. What would you and your community preserve? What knowledge would you safeguard? What kind of sanctuary would you build, not just for your body, but for your spirit? The city offers no easy answers, only the enduring evidence that it can be done. Its legacy is not a closed book, but an open conversation across centuries. The final mystery of Derinkuyu is the meaning we choose to bring to it, making an ancient story of stone and survival newly and profoundly our own. Our journey through the hidden city leaves us not in darkness, but with a clearer light. The story of Derinkuyu is far more than an archaeological checklist. It is a resonant echo of a fundamental human truth. We have walked from that chance hammer strike into a world of brilliant adaptation, from the silent engineering of breathable air to the profound social contracts that held a community together under immense pressure. This city beneath the soil does not speak of a people defined by their fears, but by their formidable response to it. They looked into the face of uncertainty and answered with wells, with rolling doors, with chapels carved in stone, a symphony of solutions orchestrated for survival. Their legacy is one of breathtaking foresight, a masterclass in building resilience not just into walls, but into the very fabric of society. Derinkuyu challenges us to reconsider our own definitions of strength and innovation. True preparedness is not merely having a plan, but having built a world capable of sustaining that plan through unknown trials. It is found in the cooperation that turns 20,000 individuals into a single, breathing organism, and in the cultural will to invest in a sanctuary for generations you may never meet. This ancient refuge, therefore, becomes a surprisingly modern mirror. In an age of our own complex challenges, it asks us what we are building together. What foundations are we laying, not of stone, but of knowledge and community, that might shelter those who come after us? The city's greatest lesson is that our deepest ingenuity is often forged not in times of ease, but in necessity, revealing a capacity to adapt, to unite, and to hope that is carved into our shared human story. If exploring these hidden layers of history has captivated you, there are countless more enigmas waiting to be uncovered. Consider subscribing to join future journeys into the past's greatest mysteries. And we would love to hear your perspective. What single aspect of Derinkuyu's story amazed or inspired you the most? Share your thoughts below.